Welcome to Annerversary's online update showcase video. Today we've gotten the Anniversary update, which contains a whole lot of new stuff for the game. So first up, a new engine, passenger cars, a new water tower, more buildings and props, the option to move industries around in-game without the use of third-party tools, which is nice, as well as a few bug fixes and an entirely new map for the game. It's amazing how much we've gotten. Spoilers, the qualities of it all is a bit all over the place, but we'll get to that because today I'll not only show you guys the new content, but also give you my opinion on the matter. So let's get started because there's a lot of stuff to get through. Starting out with a new water tower, 600 capacity. Apparently this is filled with D and RG water. Yeah, I don't know why they voted like that, but yeah, this is a huge chunky boy with a ladder on the side, which also works evidently, so that's nice. Mechanism for getting the water out is pretty much the same as for 3 of the other water towers, so same old same. But overall I think it's a nice addition to just have another option for these, and yeah, if you want to make your yard look a bit different, now there's another option for it, which is just nice. Although I think at this point maybe they should just add a few different parts to the names of the water towers, so it's not just 4 water towers. I mean, you can still just identify them by the picture, but it would be nice if this was the D and what was it? D and RG water tower and that kind of stuff. Anyways, moving on, we have the church, which has been teased on the Discord a while ago. This is one of the very few town buildings that only comes in one color variant. But I think overall it's a pretty nice model, albeit just for decoration as of now. No real use for it, as there is no passenger transportation, despite having the cars already and some more things for passenger stations, like these little shelters over here. 8 different color variations for those, but again, all just for decorations, and we'll have to see when we finally get an official passenger update. Or town building one. Just wanna check one quick thing. Okay, this seems to be up to scale to John Railroads in here. Some of the other buildings, I don't know if I've shown it in the past, but they don't necessarily seem to be working too well with how large the guy is. He's looking pretty small over here. And yeah, his size is gonna become a bit more important later once we look at the new engine. So let me just get rid of this here. But yeah, besides these props, we also have this little station over here. Apparently built after a real life one with maybe a bench inside here, but we can't open the door anyways. And yeah, the last prop that I found here that is new is this little minecart, which is supposed to be for the different mines as a decoration piece. I mean, honestly, it would be way overkill if they had to add a system to lay down tracks for this thing. As it is, it only fits on the regular track sideways. But the thing is, as it is right now, you can kinda only place it in the dirt, which is a bit weird in my opinion. But hey, if you can make something out of this, you now have the option to do so. It's certainly a nice model on its own, so nothing bad about that. But yeah, I think that's all for the props, so let's talk about the train over here, of different passenger cars. Overall, it's only one of them, but it comes in 5 different color options, so I decided to just give you guys a quick overlook over all of these options. As we have them here, I think this is the default one. And then you get all of the other ones. I like that there's now a blue one. I wish we had the option to paint some of our cars blue. Would like to have some bulkhead cars fitting for the barrels. But yeah, these are all the options for them, and looking inside them, I think this is where we get a few little issues, at least I see a few. The graphics are all set to maximum right here, so this is supposed to be epic. First up would need to bend down in order to get through here unscathed. But just some of the textures, they look very low resolution. Especially compared to some of the actual models beside them, and that's a bit weird. Also, oh yeah, Initially I thought this was just a hook for a jacket or something. No, this is the ending of this luggage rack here, so that's a bit odd. So yeah, some of the stuff here looks pretty good, like the seats, but the wall textures and all that, I'm not too much a fan of it. The model itself is pretty nice, but the rest of the stuff may need a few more additions here to look the part. And yeah, this is also just going through the wall. It's a bit weird with some of the stuff. This entire thing closed in at $950 per car. I don't think I'll be using them right now because there is really nothing to use them for. There is no passenger transport, and that kind of brings me to another point. The devs did a poll 1 month ago on their Discord, and the question was, would you want these cars before we get any function for them? And the overwhelming answer was yes, please give them to us. So I can't really blame the devs for putting this stuff out without it being useful. I can blame the community, however. But the thing is, overall, this shouldn't really delay anything else in the game. If they have the models already, just putting them out on the public build should be a thing of about 5 or 10 minutes or something, I don't know. But it's certainly not any significant dev time, so them taking the time to make them public on popular requests, why not? But this also tells me that they likely wouldn't have done this if we could expect the passenger train update to be coming out anytime soon. So this is likely been done this way because everything else is still being worked on and not late in the development yet. So don't expect this to be functional within the next weeks or so. This is likely going to take a long time to come out, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, that being said about the cars, let's talk about the engine. The Lima, which is a 280 engine. Nice to just write that down here so I can read it whenever I need to. And this is the new strongest engine in the game. It even beats out the Climax by a significant margin. And it's just as fast as the Twin Seas, so yeah, pretty good on that front. The new one that can do basically everything. So unless you want to save a bit of money and either go for not so strong engine that maybe is the same speed or even a bit slower, or one that can at least do almost the exact same pull, but therefore is very slow like the Climax, then yeah, that's something that you can do. I overall wish they would do something where it's more balanced. So maybe some of the faster engines are less powerful, or the really strong ones don't get to the top speed or anything like that. But it is what it is. I still go out of my way to use some of the other engines in the game, but when it comes to needing raw power and wanting to move something quickly, this is what I want to go for, and everything else is kind of just subpar at this point. Let's have a quick look at all of its values, the same as for the other passenger cars here. So the passenger car is over here, comes in all the 5 different colors that I've shown you. Again, price 950, 17,600 points. And the engine is all the way in the back of the menu. Here we have it. $7,500 for this. Weighs 19,405 405 points. So that is significantly more than the Twin Sea, and also more than the Climax, which is like 17,500 or something. So this beats it by 1,900, whatever that is, foot-pound. The weight comes in at 97,994, so yeah, 97,800 about, which is a bit more hefty than the Twin Sea. So that might make a difference on steeper inclines. But yeah, the speed, again, same as the Twin Sea. As for customization, we have a few different smoke stacks. like the regular one, a shorter, slightly thicker one, then this Frankenstein's monster looking kind of thing with screws coming out on the sides, or whatever these are. So these are the Spark Arrestor ones. And then an onion shaped one. Different headlight options, some with antlers. And 2 options for the paint, which seems to be mostly detail work of the bare metal areas here. So yeah, not too much in terms of customization over there, but well, I wish there were a few more popping colors. However, let's now get into the thing and a few things that are worth talking about. First up, for some reason this one doesn't have any collision on the coal, so you fall into it. Might be very low score, so yeah. Another thing that kinda annoyed me a little is just this whole entryway, and that's something that I think is more of a problem with how tall John Railroadson is, because we're either completely just going into squats and crawling in basically, or you'll be clipping through this thing every time you enter or leave the engine, and this is annoying. And again, I think they should just make Railroadson a bit shorter, because he is a bit too tall for not only this engine but also a few others. When you come inside here, this thing by the way is one of those engines, and I felt kind of weird for something this strong. This only has like regular brakes or no air brakes, or at least it doesn't need a compressor. You will even see that when going into the F menu over here. So there's no generator, there's no compressor here. Whistle by the way. Just so you can this right here. And yeah, there are again a few doors in front to walk out here, which is nice. But one thing that I also found that I'm not particularly happy about, these textures again. They look kinda shoddy in a few ways, so I don't know. Overall, I like the engine, the shape of it, the way it's modeled. It's looking pretty nice for the most part, but especially in the cabin, some of the stuff is a bit low quality in my opinion. Also the shape of this, I think this is supposed to be round and it just isn't. I hope they eventually go back and just do some general cleanup with the kind of stuff. It seems like different things that could have maybe used the same texture are for some reason either using low quality texture or a completely different one, like the switches over here, both the ballast as well as the rail itself. I think it would look a lot better if it was cleaned up and made just all the same across the board. And that may also reduce a few of the requirements, because you don't need to load all those many textures to begin with, if you make more things have the same texture. So I hope we'll eventually get an overhaul and only have like different versions where we actually need them. But yeah, some of the things like having square valves is kind of nice, having a few different items here and there, but again, a few of them textures are a bit poorly. Okay, let's see. I think it was all that I had to say about the engine, so let's go over through some of the bug fixes and all that. First up, one weird change, the map looks a bit different, it's a bit less saturated, however that at least makes anything that you place on here pop a bit more. So this might be in preparation for the map update. Next thing, telegraph posts. The door here now has a collision, so if you run into the door and you try to get out of the way, it will just close on you again. So you need to kind of step to the side of it when it will open. It's a bit annoying trying to get out of here. But the main thing I wanted to get to is the refinery. Those who follow my regular series on this channel know that I have my few issues, because this is obviously a moved industry and it's been rotated, meaning that the barrels used to not just roll off the ramp anymore, but instead yeeted off into one direction. In which case I tried to catch them and put them onto a more onto a ramp a bit more in a controlled manner, but that's all been dealt with. However, I don't necessarily really like how it's been done. In general, it's a step up because the way it all now works is very consistent. So if I lower the chute here and wait for it to get low enough, you'll see the barrel will just drop off the end of the platform, and from that point on it just loads on there with a bit of a delay, and that's gonna be it. So this is absolutely consistent, no matter where you put the industry, and even in the default position, where even with the original ramp, sometimes some of stuff would go off to the side. However, I think this looks a bit rubbish. I think for the feel, it was always nice seeing this part here, knowing, oh, that's a ramp, the barrels are gonna roll down. It's a bit different than the cranes all the time. Ideally, I would like them to program a barrel that would spawn at the end here once you lower the chute, and then it rolls down here and be scripted, so you couldn't possibly get it off its tracks, and once it's all the way down here, then the industry will try to find the car to put it on, and that's how that should work. So it wouldn't be just a regular physics object once it's up here, but instead just scripted, and once it's getting to the end of a ramp, then it's gonna be placed on to a car. As is, again, still better than this stuff, and it definitely helps out anybody who wants to do different industry placements. So that's already a plus, but I hope for the final version of this, and I would like it to happen soonish, and they come back to this and still do a bit more to make it look nice. So the next thing, and the last bug update that I want to talk about, has to do with the telephone poles and the cables. So first up, there has been a bug where when you place down a telegraph office, you get two poles over here, which led to duplicated lines. That has been dealt with according to the devs, and now they also replaced the cables, so that now the cables only spawn in as non-physics objects, which should improve just the entire performance of the game a little. Problem is, you may need to now replace all of the telegraph poles in order to get the lines updated. Even over here, where I don't have a double pole problem, it's still two sets of lines, which you're going to see more towards the middle. I mean, they certainly are a bit thicker than normal. And on this map, I had it quite often where I would place down a few telegraph posts over here. Once I place them, the line would form and they would connect. And once I save and load back in later down the line, they then would be disconnected, as you can see here. Overall, I hope this is not a problem anymore now that they changed how the cables behave. However, I still think the ideal way of handling this would be placing the telegraph posts without any lines on them. Maybe some indicator on how far they could be away from something else to still connect. And then have another tool that allows you to put down the cables between them. Because especially if you're having something like this, maybe you have a long line in this direction, another one in this one, and for some reason in the middle the cable is missing. In order to get this connected, I can't just place down another telegraph pole here. I would actually need to remove one of the sides completely and replace that in order to get the connections, because this thing, apart from not really doing much good anyways here right now, I don't know what that is about. Well, okay, that's now connecting over there. But the thing is about these, they only ever connect into one direction at a time, so yeah, can't build anything in the middle, would need to replace everything until you reach the end of a line. And then it's looking good again. But as it is, I have no real way of just connecting these two or these two here, or even dealing with that part where that's just free floating. Okay. I hope this works out now, at least a little bit better. We'll have to see about that in the future. Again, with those lines being there, maybe they will disappear once I reload the map or something, but right now it's a bit weird. I'll try out a few things and maybe talk about them in a later video, but doing extensive testing with that is way out of the scope of what I have planned for today. So the next thing, and that's a huge thing, we now have an Industries tab. That allows us to place some more of the 9 industries that we have in the game already. As on this map I have 2 logging camps and 1 of each other industry. And yeah, there's a limit of 3 at most. Which is alright, I would say. But it's nice to now be able to do this in-game. The way it all works, you select one. And when you are getting put up in the air a little, then you can just put it down like, or you can just see where it is supposed to go. A few issues I have with this. First up, the entire movement here. It's nice that it's quicker than normal, but let's do a little test. I'll press W, now I'll also press Shift, which means I'm accelerating, and I'll be letting loose of those buttons in 3, 2, 1, now. Hands off the keyboard, we are still going, still moving. Okay, we are slowly coming to a halt. Yeah, this is basically Minecraft creative mode on Java version, flying around, but 10 times worse because you just barely ever come to a stop. And you would have to actively counter correct in order to slow down quicker. Which is a bit weird. Overall, having more overview over these giant buildings and placing them is absolutely appreciated when having to do that from ground level. But another issue I have with this, I wish they would have done something different, maybe give us a different camera mode or so. Because right now, if I want to maybe place this industry right here, it's kind of fitting, but I want to take a look at it from another angle. Well, if I move my camera around, the industry rotates around me. I should be rotating around the industry to take another look at the different sides of it to see if it's actually all fitting. But that's not how the game works, and that's a bit weird. Also, it makes the entire thing pretty imprecise, and at the end of the day, you may have to place on one industry just to see how it goes, and then have to place on another one and maybe take the first one as a bit of a guidance. Otherwise, you won't be able to get anywhere anyways. And as far as I know, by the way, if I leave that mode, you're just gonna fall back to the ground. So this is actually pretty good fast travel. Yeah, the entire industry placements depends on which direction you look. So it's pretty much the same as with other props, only that you cannot tilt these. But yeah, this is all in a rather rough increment, starting with a direction aligned to where you're looking at. So doing perfect cardinal direction is gonna be quite difficult. So yeah, again, that's a bit odd. But again, it's absolutely nice just having this in-game at all at this point. I hope they improve this in the future. Another thing that I recently noticed with this, the buildings individually level themselves once you place everything, so they are not going to tilt or anything. But let's say I want to build this on a cliff. You see, some of the buildings will be on top of the cliff, and the next one notices, okay, there's no ground below me, so I'm gonna place myself a bit lower. That can be useful, especially when you are building on a slight incline, where the building might be deep enough in the ground to actually work out that way. I think there still should at least be some groundwork below it, some foundation, so that maybe you will see some concrete if you go too low instead of looking below the thing right away. But as it is, it also causes a few issues. This whole thing is applied retroactively to every save file. So if you have already moved around some industries, like I did, they are going to be adjusted according to however this works. I put extensive care in trying to make everything ground level, putting everything on a on in a way that actually works out well, and now the game automatically adjusted that stuff. Same for default placement, and we are going to take a look at that in a moment, because this is all very much messed up in some cases, especially the sawmill, both in my version and the default stuff. So yeah, while I think this might be not the worst change, I think this should only ever happen, and that also should be optional to happen if you place down the industry. If you already have something placed, this should not be happening at all. I hope they reverse it, but as it is right now, it's a bit weird. Another thing that's weird and potentially very dangerous, you know from the other update how I made some fun about being able to delete the ironworks? Well, you can place industries, so you would of course expect to be able to delete them again, which you can. However, I think as for a simple safety mechanism, industry deletion should not be part of the all option of a demolish tool. That should be its own thing, and it should never, if you use all, it should never apply to industries. Overall, if you are building anything in the game, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's a very different occasion where you would build something like facilities, put down some props, lay down some tanks, that kind of stuff, or put on an entire industry. You're not gonna switch between one and the other willy-nilly, I don't think, at least not for the most part, and therefore I think it would be way better if below these options here for the demolishing, there would be one fat line, and then below that industries. And at that point you only are going to delete industries, because that's likely the only thing you'll be dealing with at that point, and the rest is just for everything else. But as it is right now, being able to delete anything with a delete tool when it's put to all, that's very dangerous. So let's now take a look at the stuff that got messed up due to this change in how industries are placed. The main thing I noticed was here with my sawmill, because I used to have this ramp down here pretty much at the side of the bridge. Looked pretty nice, worked out pretty well, and with this now being underwater, so are the logs. That's a bit weird. I could kinda live with that, to be honest, because at the end of the day this is what I did to the game before it was even an official option. But this is going to mess up a lot of people's stuff. I don't know if this is something that would stay like this now forever, or if I could do something about this by maybe putting something else below it. If it updates every time I load into the game, then whatever I do here would need to be a permanent fixture. And if it doesn't update, then, well, I would still need to replace the entire industry to get this on the right level again. I'll wait until Railroad Studio updates to see what options I get for that, because this as it is right now is pretty rubbish. This is the main thing I noticed on my save. I have a few interesting industry placements. You know what, let's use the new fast travel. Selecting the coal mine because it's one of the smaller industries. And let's just take a look around the map by flying all over the place. One thing I absolutely expected to be messed up would be the iron mine, but that seems to be alright. And yeah, we can just get here now within like 20 seconds or something. But yeah, this thing is alright. For some reason the coal mine is still alright in its placement. I mean, that's still default there, but this one is pretty out there. Or more like pretty up there. This is still okay. I think some of the stuff may have shifted up and down a little, but it doesn't really mess up anything. I was halfway expecting to see the building that's supposed to be behind there somewhere up here, but apparently that doesn't happen, which is good. But one thing I actually found that was not looking too well is the smelter down there, which is placed on a perfectly flat surface, and again I made sure to place it high or low enough to look good where it was. So what do we get now once we go down here? First up we get low movement speed again. Should have maybe gone a bit closer. But the thing is, the entire building is now floating above ground. And that's the same for it in its original placement, so... This is floating. This is not reaching down to the ground anymore. This is barely... I mean, this is being tingled by the grass. And yeah, I don't know if it's the same for everything here, but stuff like, especially this little side hut here, not touching the ground anymore, and I don't know what to do about this to fix this. Like, this is not unplayable or anything, but it's kinda bad. So yeah, absolutely not happy about this change. I hope they revert it. I don't know if I'll definitely at least be making a security update and just a backup of my files in order to potentially go back to a version where it works out well, maybe copy the stuff from there, but right now, god, this is so weird. And again, this is the exact same thing on the regular save. So let's take a look at that now. Again, it's one thing messing with people's already edited versions of the maps. You can expect some things to go wrong there, but I think at least the regular save should be fine. Like, if you didn't move your industries around at all, you shouldn't have to deal with this. So let's go back to my original playthrough and see how that goes. And yeah, to be honest at this point, it should be pretty clear that I'm not necessarily happy about how everything is going here. I get that sometimes things come out buggy, but if you get to the point where it's actually messing with people's save files and that, and maybe not even allowing them to save or play anymore, that's pretty bad. But we still have that other map to go through. First, however, let's take a quick look at this one. So again, I'll be taking the coal mine. We are over here right now, so let's quickly go over the mountain. Honestly, I enjoy this much more than the... look, I'm even flying even higher than I used to. I kinda like this more than using the telegraph poles now. There's some general weirdness with some of the cars and engines over here, but that's down to an update that happened long ago. So we'll ignore this one here. I think though for the coal mine, well, it all seems to be a bit higher than it used to. So this is floating. I don't know if I could even drive over this without any problems. It doesn't seem to have a hitbox, but it's a bit weird. So this seems to come out of the ground a little, and yeah. Again, wouldn't be a problem if whatever they have done to industries wouldn't happen retroactively to anything that's already in game. Let's now go to the smelter to reconfirm that it's actually slightly off the ground. You can see that pretty well over here. So that's all pretty weird. Completely ignoring the class 48 there. It's just gonna... I don't know what it's gonna do. And now to the main course, the sawmill. So yeah, this platform moved up, which in itself doesn't look too bad, although this might mess with my unloading mechanism. I might need to move the track a bit further off, but that's alright, that's something I can deal with. What I cannot deal with is these logs here not even touching the water anymore. Again, this is vanilla. This is here how it spawns if you start the game anew and don't do anything about it. So why is this a thing? And another thing that I forgot to mention before, the groundwork, the foundation, is not attached to the actual building. This is gonna stay around here, fixed to the map if you move the industry around, so that's all a bit weird. And again on this map, there is no lake big enough, apart from this one, or just no body in water in general, in order to hold all of these logs. You can place the industry somewhere on the ground and Maybe the logs will just stay on the ground and, yeah, somewhere on the grass or something like that. Or you can rotate it around the lake here to still make it fit, but it's all kinda messed up. Maybe the stuff will go underground, I don't know. But yeah, this shouldn't be how it comes out here. So this is my experience as far as how it's getting messed up is, but there are likely a lot of other people who have made similar additions to the map and just changed things around, and their stuff is likely broken even harder than mine. But yeah, so much about this. Let's now take a look at the new map. Spoilers, I kinda like the new map, but it also has a few awful details. Let me just wait to unload all of this, and then we'll get into it. So if we pick new save game, we can choose either between Pine Valley, which is the map we are playing on, or we've been playing on for however long, or Lake Valley, which is a new one. And this one is actually pretty nice at a glance. What I can tell you guys already about it, the size is supposedly the exact same one as it used to be on the old one. You can even choose a starter locomotive. I think Betsy might still be the best option, maybe the Shay, but that would only be for dealing with stuff in the station, but to go out of a station, I mean, Montezuma is pretty useless anyways. I don't think that has a high top speed anyway, so if it's still as fast as the Betsy, I would always go with the Betsy. So yeah, this is the new map. I mean, different vegetation, multiple types of trees, even some of them being smaller and all that. That's pretty cool. So let's have a quick general look around it. By the way, this is the map overall. I think this looks a lot bigger on just the first glance. But again, I've been assured that this map is supposed to be the same size as the other one. So let's fly around a little with our industry fast movement. And the cool thing about this is this even has like different biomes. There's like at least two of them that are distinctly different from each other. One of them being this grassland over here, which covers most of the map, but we also have a more I don't know, Tundra? Tundra likely is the wrong word for this. But a more desert-like version. And one thing that I'm noticing is it's actually pretty natural. It doesn't really look all that evened out and all that, where the other map was like, pretty much half of it was flattened out completely to allow for industry placement and train placement to be real quick. But this one, far more natural, which is not the worst thing. It looks pretty nice. But think about building a track over here. I think that can be rather tough since we don't have any options to make cuts in the terrain or anything. Speaking of cuts, let's now go to the edge of the map. Because they kinda cut it off. Very harshly. This is another thing that I just have to say this looks so unfinished. I think they should be able to address this, make the outside fit the border here, so it's just a seamless transition. But as it is, you can especially see that at the corner over there. The map cuts off and then something else begins afterwards, which is supposed to be like the far distance thing that you're not interacting with. And this goes pretty much all around the map apart from one little point where you have a river coming in, and they even placed props down to have the river look nice. Oh look, at that point the outside part of the map doesn't even connect. And yeah, this is a lot easier to see from this perspective, but if you go to the edge of the map and do so in regular mode, there are still a few places where you are going to spot this without any issues, just from ground level. But yeah, I think that's also a nice way to just give you guys an overlook over how large this map is overall. But yeah, stuff like this, this is very cheap and dirty. If you go back to the ground, also some very densely packed trees over here. The edge is just over there. If I cut down a few trees so I can look a bit further, I mean, you can even see that over there. That's clearly not natural. So yeah, where are we? We are close to the point that I wanted to show. So let's just keep moving on. Another thing that you may have noticed about this map, and that's another huge point, there are no industries on this one. Apart from your starting area, this is completely blank and untouched, and we are getting close to that point that I was talking about. Here's the little section where they, for some reason, placed on a few props to make the river go from coming out of nothing, being on the outside terrain a bit. I mean, this is usually okay for the most part because they're not supposed to get too close to it anyways. But for some reason, there are some props there to guide the river down over here. And yeah, it's a bit weird. So yeah, no industries on the map. You are supposed to just walk around or fly around and place them yourself. As somebody who has done that and who has taken about a week to figure out where everything should be placed, no, that was not a significant part where I had to fiddle with a third-party tool. That took me a while, but the real problem was figuring out which industry I wanted to place where, and doing so was really just a minor thing. Figuring this out on a completely new map that you haven't ever played on is gonna be tough. So it would be really nice just having a default option for everything instead of having to figure it out right away. But they haven't included any version of that here. If you want a semi-official map that has industries on it, on this version, on the Lake Valley map, you can go to the Discord and download it, then pull it into your save folder, and then you can have it. But in the game, there is no such thing by default. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity. Anybody who wants to place an industry themselves can absolutely do so. No problem at all. They can go right ahead, delete your old ones, place on the new ones. That's really not a big thing. That can happen within a few minutes, at least the deletion part. But anybody who just wants to play on here, wants to enjoy the new map. If you don't have Discord or you are not on that server, you are shit out of luck anyways. Unless you know somebody else who is. But again, just not being able to get it from within the game is already a huge barrier of entry. And expecting people to figure out how they want to place this stuff, well, it's nice that it's an option. Absolutely enjoy that. The amount of theory crafting people can do in order to get a nice layout here is so immense. It's another huge barrier of just getting in and play. So putting down some industries here as a default, that should have been what they went with, and not just, hey, look at this empty map with nothing on it. Great. So yeah, overall, the map is nice. It has a few obvious problems. Again, with the terrain, I would have to try it, but I think it's kinda going to be difficult getting proper track laid out with how uneven everything is. Again, that's gonna feel a lot more natural, but the game at this point could really do with some cuts and tunnel options in order to deal with that. There's also these pre-made paths here, where you can maybe place down a town if you want to, or something like that. Maybe somewhere over here the sawmill would feel right at home. After all, that needs a rather specific way of setting up in order to fit into the area. So huge body of lake, check. But also needing like inside L shape in order to fit both the building and the offloading platform. But yeah, I don't know. The thing about me overall, or for me about this update overall, it added a lot of content that seems kinda unfinished, And the game doesn't have a best track record of coming in afterwards and just making everything work out better. Right now, they just keep adding stuff. It's all in a weird state sometimes, like the coal engines having seemingly infinite coal on their tenders, and they just don't do these adjustments. I don't mind if, especially an early access game, comes out with stuff not being completely finished and polished, but there should be some of that done closely afterwards and not just adding more stuff. So yeah, with this one, I don't know. I don't know if I would play on here anytime soon. It's something that I would be into, but right now, as it is, there are a few bit iffy parts. So if you made it to the end here, if you're watching my regular stuff as well, let me know if you even want to see me play on this. I mean, it's tempting. It would definitely take me a while to figure out how I want to deal with this stuff. It's nice that we now can place it in-game, but it's also, again, it's all very iffy. And I think that's really the best note to end this on. I heard that the devs saw this as or took this as a deliberate decision. They didn't want to have a default thing on here. But again, I think they only missed out on a few opportunities here. Because in the end, anybody who wants to edit the map can do so rather easily. And anybody who just wants to play on here now has a more difficult task at hand to do so. But I think that's gonna be it from me right now. Let me know what you think about this update. Again, there are a few things on here that I like, but some of them just don't really stand a closer look without scrutiny. So, I guess until next time, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and till then, bye bye.